Hi, Ed here from keywordspeopleuse.com, and I've got an exclusive time-limited offer for you. If you book a product demo with Keywords People Use, I'll give you a free 7-day trial of our standard plan, which allows you access to our new content optimization tool. This tool hooks into your Google Search Console data so we can find all the keywords you're ranking for and what pages are ranking. We then crawl your site content and use advanced machine learning techniques like embeddings and cosine similarity to find you content optimization opportunities that will quickly boost your impressions and clicks from Google. This new feature in Keywords People Use is already showing results for people using it. Don't miss out on the opportunity of a 7-day free trial. Just go to keywordspeopleuse.com/demo to book your slot. That's keywordspeopleuse.com/demo. You'll find the link in the show notes of this episode. Hello and welcome to SEO is Not That Hard. I'm your host Ed Dawson, the founder of the SEO intelligence platform keywordspeopleuse.com, where we help you discover the questions people ask online and then how to optimize your content to build traffic and authority. I've been in SEO and online marketing for over 20 years, and I'm here to share the wealth of knowledge, hints and tips I've amassed over that time. Hello and welcome back to SEO is Not That Hard. It's me here, Ed Dawson, hosting as usual. And today we've got something quite new for you. After 200 episodes and more of just me talking, basically, apart from the odd time when I've shared episodes I've been on, this is the first time I've actually got a guest on the podcast. And this is a guy called Marc Hillander. He's an influencer marketing specialist. This was a great chat that I had with Marc. We discussed all things influencer marketing because obviously SEO and influencer marketing are related because it's just another channel for getting people to be aware of your brand, to be aware of your products, using influencers to help share your message. Because more and more, especially with the younger generations like my teenage daughters, they're using things like TikTok and Instagram as search engines now. So this is something that's really important to be aware of. Even if it's not something we use necessarily ourselves right away, I think it's really important to be aware of. So without further ado, let's get into the chat with Marc. So here I am today with Marc Hillander, and he is an influencer marketing specialist. And I've invited him on to the podcast today because I'm really interested in learning more about influencer marketing because it's not something I'm massively familiar with or have ever really used. It's something we've obviously considered. So I'm interested to see what Marc can teach us all today, what we can learn from him. So Marc, if you'd just like to introduce yourself to the audience and, take us where you want to go with the influencer marketing.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. So, as you said, my name is Marc Hillander, and I've been working with sales and marketing for over 16 years. And what I believe is that I've been through all the different trends during the years. Things happen, and how can we use marketing in different ways? So my plan here today is to go through the basic on what you need to think about and how you can get started in a very easy way. Because if we look at I'm extremely data driven, so I love the numbers. And what we can see is that 92% of all the people trust influencer more than traditional marketing. And that's a pretty amazing high number. So then we can ask ourselves, why aren't more people doing this if we are able to get so much more trust?
Okay, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I've obviously seen influence marketing in action, with other brands using it. But then when I'm looking at keywords people use, obviously we've never used it. And I think probably the biggest question, the first question I've got is, what do you do if you want to get started with influencer marketing? What are your starting points? I mean, for me, it's obviously I'd be thinking, how do I find the right influencers? Because obviously there's influencers and there's influencers. They have to have, I assume, the right audience that would connect with your audience.
And that's a good way, because a lot of people say, as you, we need to find the right influencer. But first, you need to understand your own audience. The same as you do with all the other marketing activities you do today. You decide which audience you want to reach. But normally when you think, influence marketing, we need to find the right influencers. But first, figure out your audience. And out there's a lot of different platforms where you can actually scout, which means that if you know exactly which type of person you want to reach, you can easily filter that
Mhm.
and get all that information. And then you can decide which influencer you actually want to work with. So first of all, you need to understand your audience, as always. Type that in,
Yeah.
and then you can choose the influencer that suits your audience the best.
Okay, so what are these? Where do we find these platforms? Are these well-known ones? 'Cause I've got no idea here, basically.
There
So
are a
I'm
lot.
starting from scratch.
And there are different level of them. There are a lot of scouting tools out there, and those mean that you can easily just find the influencers. But then you also have platforms
Mhm.
that can do the whole process for you, which means when you scout the person, you can easily reach out to them. You get an estimate fee, what they normally charge for that collaboration. And then, of course, in the
Mhm.
end, you get all the data.
And so, what kind of data would you get on it? So, if you were scouting for like a particular influencer, what kind of data points should you be looking at when trying to choose an influencer? So, obviously, if you think they've got the right audience, that's one data point. But then, what are the other kind of variables that you should be taking into consideration when trying to pick the ones to
Yeah,
make first
exactly.
approaches
And the
to?
most important, I believe, is the engagement rate. And with that means how
Right.
much they engage with the influencer in their post stories, whatever. So I believe
Mhm.
that one is extremely important, because then you know they have a good relationship with their followers.
Right. So that's not obviously. Does this get around the problem where some influencers? Well, I've heard stories where some influencers will kind of
Mm.
artificially inflate their follower numbers. They might be buying followers and that kind of thing on various platforms. So it looks like they might be better than they are. So is following the engagement rate a way of kind of cutting out those people that might be
Actually not,
overinflating?
because in most of the platforms, for example, since where I worked before, you get the followers, and then you can see if there are suspicions accounts. You can
Mhm.
see if they're real followers, influencer followers. So the good thing with the platform is that you can see that directly. Uh, and then
Right.
afterwards, you can
Okay.
also see the engagement level. So you can easily filter that
Right.
directly and see, okay, does this make sense to work with them or not? Because nowadays it's
Okay.
you can't work with someone that buys their followers.
Right. So these sort of the platforms help you avoid that issue of basically, people ripping you off essentially, or sort of overcharging for what their
Mm.
actual real reach is. Okay, that's really good to know. Um, so if you're looking at working with an influencer, what's the typical kind of model that they'll work on? Is it like a flat fee for a certain pieces of content that they'll produce for their audience, or do any of them work on like a CPA, cost per acquisition deal, where the more they perform for you, the more you pay them? What's the kind of typical ways of that monetization and that kind of like
Yeah, the
charging
normal
process?
way it's that you pay a fee for the production that they do,
Mhm.
because that's the easiest way
Mhm.
of doing it. But also,
Mhm.
depending on how big they are, and because a lot of people
Mhm.
love to work with smaller influencers, because maybe if they are a retail or e-commerce, they can send out product instead of paying
Right.
them. Uh, and what is good also
Mhm.
with a platform then is that you can understand, okay, how much product should they have depending on what level they are. And that is
Right.
calculated on CPM, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right. A lot. If you've got like a physical product or an online product, you can actually just essentially just give them the free product in return for them
Exactly.
creating
Exactly.
content.
Depending
Essentially.
on the size of the
Okay.
influencers.
Right. Okay. And so if you were, say, you're an e-commerce brand, say, let's
Mm.
take beauty as an example. So let's say you're a makeup brand or something, like a small makeup brand, like, not a
Mm.
big conglomerate, but you're like a small brand, and you're trying to get noticed. And you find these influencers who will just do it in
Mm.
return for products without payment. What kind of numbers of reach would you be expecting that level of influencer to get to? So if, say, your product is worth
Mm.
maybe sort of £40, $40, how much for every one of them you give out? How much to an influencer? How much reach would you expect to get from that? Is there kind of like an idea of how far it goes?
It all depends because the numbers, it's hard to understand depending on the content that the creator do. But I would say if they have less than 10,000 followers, you know that you will get somewhere between 10,000 views. But it's all because one problem I believe a lot of people are doing in influencer marketing is that, hey, you need to do this video. You have all these guidelines. You need to be like this and this. It doesn't work like that because you need to also, if you want to collaborate with an influencer, you need to let them be creative. Because you know, because we don't know, no one knows which post is going to be viral. And that is, but the influencer does this as work. So you need to let them be like they are, because if you try to say to them, you need to follow this script, it won't work.
Right. So you're basically saying don't be prescriptive to people. So if you're going to work with influencers, your very best thing is to just literally let them get on with it because they know their audience. They know what works for their audience. If you over prescriptive, then you might end up negating it. The kind of the benefits. They're not going to make the best videos. Yeah. Is it? Surely, I mean, but is there maybe some things you might want to prescribe at a certain level? So, like you might say, don't mention another. If you've got a big competitor, you don't want them to mention. So, it's okay to be to set certain guidelines around certain things you don't want them to say potentially. But I suppose you don't want them to say this is the exact format, this is the exact script. You can sort of say, don't do this.
That's better. Don't do this, but otherwise you can do whatever you want. Because then you will succeed. And what we have seen, I believe more this year, is that first of all, influencer marketing was more nice to have, but nowadays it's going to be need to have. Because if you want to stay up on top and want to be a part of all the markets, you need also to be there. We have seen some B2B companies starting with influencer marketing. Not that normal, but it works okay. But I would say if you work with B2C and want to be successful, you need to look at influencer marketing as a long-term also. Not that something you do maybe once a year, because then you won't get the effect that you actually want.
Right, so it's more of an ongoing thing rather than just doing it and then forget. It's not something you do once, essentially. This is like it's a channel and you need to stick at it and do it as an ongoing process. Okay, so are there any, like, obviously there's different places that the influencers put content. Are there any favorites you've got? Are there any you think that work better? Because obviously there's TikTok, there's Instagram, there's Facebook, there's YouTube. There's probably even more. I mean, I'm of a certain age now. Like, you know, my kids are teenagers and they're just constantly on all these different platforms. Snapchat again, that's the one that's the one I was thinking of that I couldn't remember that they're always on. So is there any like particular channels you favor, or should you be choosing like influencers that cross-post across multiple different platforms? Where do platforms sit? Are some better for some industries and some better for others? You know, where do platforms
I believe that the most important three are YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, because we have seen that they have the most value that you actually could bring. So I would say, but at the start, you could start with one channel, try it out, and you need also, as I said, in those platforms, you can decide if you want to search influencers in YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and then you can decide also where your audience will be the best fit. Because I want to always take influence marketing a step back, that focus on the audience. Do like you always do. Don't focus on the person in the start. Focus on your audience and understand where you will get the best reach and engagement level.
Right. So some brands might find that their audience is on YouTube mainly, so they'll focus. Then you'd want to focus on YouTubers. Some might find their audience is mainly hanging out on TikTok, so then they'll gravitate towards influencers who focus on TikTok. So it's really about, again, you need to follow where your audience is, and then find influencers on the platforms that the audiences are on. Do you ever find that there's many where the audiences might be in multiple places, and those influencers might be posting on multiple places?
Yep, and that could make sense. It all depends on how you want to do your marketing, because I mentioned it a bit, but if you want to succeed with influencer marketing, if we look at the companies that actually do that, they take around 10 to 20% of their marketing budget. So it's not an add-on,
right?
It's that you do instead of something else.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So you might say, we'll reduce, say you've a company spending a lot on AdWords, or Google Ads as it's called now, and it might decide, and I know from experience that is now getting harder and harder to make a return on, because Google just take more. They just take more and more of the percentage. They want to leave you with 1 cent on the dollar, basically, don't they? That's what they consider a success point. So you were saying, the bestest way of starting out is just taking some of your existing budget and then putting it into the influence side. You said 10 to 20% was a good starting
depending
point.
on how big budget you have. And because we have seen a lot of companies succeeding only by using influencer marketing. A Swedish company where I'm from, Boksbollen, if you heard about them.
Yeah. Books online. Yeah. Were they around maybe? Exactly. They were around a long time, Bol.com. Because at one point, before Amazon really got going in the UK, if you wanted to buy a book, Bol.com was one place of getting it. I think I might have bought stuff off Bol.com years and years ago before Amazon just destroyed them in the UK when it came to that. So, I know who you mean. So I know
what we can see, some companies, if they do it right, they can only work with influencer marketing. But once more, then you need to be some more of a B2C company, because you won't succeed in the same way with B2B.
Okay. So we've got to the point. So we've found some influencers. We know our audiences. So we've said our audience is on on this social network. We've found some influencers. We've sent them some product, or I presume for the bigger ones, we've paid them some money and sent them the product. How after that's done and they've put out content, how do we measure the success of that content? How do we measure how well we're doing?
And that's an extremely good question, because it depends on what your goals are. Because for some people, it's brand awareness, to build the brand awareness, and then you need to focus on how many views did we actually get, and which people actually saw our ad. Because if you use a platform, once more, we both love platforms, you will get all the data. So if you want brand awareness, you can see how many views it is. If you actually reach your target that you were supposed to, you can also look at the CTR. If you want to see how many you actually went to your website. But you can also use, the classic one, discount code, and then you see directly. So everything gets integrated. If you have a platform and you get all the data you will ever need, you can also see which influencer works best, which one should we use more, which channels works best. So as I said, influencer marketing in the past was something nice to have, but now when it's a need to have, you need to have some platform so you can actually show your manager, this is what influencer marketing brings. What's the return of doing this? And nowadays you are able to do that. In the past, you couldn't in a nice way, but now you can actually prove some value.
Okay, fantastic. So in terms of the sort of the mechanics of the call to actions that you can have, so someone's produced a piece of content, you're an e-commerce site, and essentially you want sales, say, for example, you're going for sales, and we've got our sort of our makeup, we've got our, it's mascara or something. The reason I'm talking makeup is I've got a friend who's developing a makeup brand at the moment. He's going to sell on Amazon. I don't think he's going to do any influencer marketing at this point anyway. So I'm not trying to fish for him, but I was just talking to him earlier today about it. So he's got this mascara. So you've got your mascara and you've sent it out to some influencers, and you're your key metric is you want to drive traffic to your website for sales. Can you track from the sort of say they're going on TikTok? Can you track clicks from TikTok, or can you even put links on TikTok so that the influencer can kind of drive people to click to buy? And can you then track that? Can you then track the traffic and then sales that arrive at your site? Is that possible to do?
But the easiest way people do today is that they use some kind of discount code. So, for example, if it's my brand and I'm pitching the mascara, I would say use Marc for 20% off, because then it's even easier to follow up. And if your audience has good engagement with the influencer, that would actually give even more effect, because then it feels like me as an influencer give you, my followers, something for following me.
Yeah. So they get their discount, which boosts you as the influencer. Then the brand gets that gets people in, and hopefully they're looking for repeat sales, so they can put a discount code on. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that makes sense. Are there any you need to look at, like, sort of? I'm thinking now the legalities of, because I've seen in the UK there's been various, like the big influencers, that sort of the super influencers who are on TV and stuff, who've got in trouble for posting tweets or things on TikTok and not mentioning that they had a relationship with the brand that they were pushing. So as a brand owner, what kind of things? I'm assuming that the platforms are probably really good at educating the influencers who are on there, but just what it's important as well to know as a brand what those things are. So what are the regulatory things that you need to make sure that anything that you're associated with meets, so that you don't get any trouble with standards authorities?
So most of the platforms has an approval part in those, which means that the influencer need to send the material before, and they are not allowed to post before its approval. So that is like the easiest way of solving that problem.
Okay, right, brilliant, right, yeah. So literally, so the platform is then pre-approving anything that goes out before the influencer actually gets. Oh, right, okay, that's really good. So I suppose that's. I do, I need to try some of these platforms. So how much do you have to pay for the platform on top of what you pay I mean, obviously the platforms have got to make their money, haven't they? So how do the platforms? What have I got to pay a platform to?
So somewhere between 150 euros up to 5,000-6,000, depending on. And some platforms don't even have a monthly fee. They take a percentage of your spend instead. So there are a lot of different platforms out there. But just one thing I want to mention, because we are not the same generation, we are almost the same generation, but the new generation is pretty fun, because you and me see TikTok, okay, they scroll and watch something, but they are using it as a search engine. So if they want to find something, they use TikTok or Instagram. And that is your core business, as I know. But if you look as a brand, if you know that you have something that people are searching for, you also need to have relevant content on TikTok and also YouTube.
Right,
if they search there, because then you answer the question and you build your trust as a brand. So it could be an easy way of how to use the mascara in the best way, for example.
So is this something you use influencers for, or is this content we should be putting out ourselves?
I would say that you should use influencers, but you should buy the content and use it on your own TikTok page.
Right. So when an influencer creates something, you've used an influencer to create some content that they put on their own feed. You then take that content they've produced and then put it on your own feed. So you reuse the influencer's content on your own feed. Is that what you're saying?
Because then you get the trust from her followers, but you also get the opportunity to reach out. And in that way, if you find a really good influencer, you should keep them and make them ambassador for your company.
Right. And with those influencers, so is that like you would be paying, do you pay them additionally if you want to reuse
So
their content?
what you do when you are able, before you start the collaboration, to add that to the contract, that you can buy it. But otherwise, you can always ask afterwards if you're allowed to use that in your other channels and pay a fee for that.
So could a good so if you say I'm doing this for the first time and I'm going in as a complete newbie, right, and I'm trying my first influencers, would a good tactic then be to say try a number of influencers and then see which ones perform, and then they're the ones that you then go back to work with again, and these are the ones which you then might say, can we also buy the content for reuse? So you can kind of like filter down by experimentation which ones work better than others.
And that's a great way of doing it, because it is like it always is with marketing. You need to try, and something won't work, something will work, and you just need to figure out that it all, I said it many times, but look at your audience before you decide influencers.
Yeah, no, that's I can see that's really, really key, because if you're a mascara influencer, then you're not, you want people, well, you want makeup influencers for your mascara. You don't want, vehicle mechanics. They're very different audiences, I imagine. Because I know that, because I use Facebook quite a lot in my social life, and Reels on that pushes me content all the time. It's interesting to see how it works out what I like, and so I get lots of farming videos, and excavation videos, and things like that. And I also get lots of equestrian stuff, because my daughters both ride, and they share videos with me of funny horse videos, which I then watch. And then, because I've watched them and it starts showing them me, but I watch them so I can then send funny ones back to them. So although I'm not personally really big into horses, it's picked up on that horses are some kind of part of my life, and they show me things like that. And I've seen how a lot of these influencers, particularly the ones that do the humorous stuff, they don't monetize every sort of piece of content they put out. Is that something, if you are looking at influencers, is it a bit of a red flag if everything is like promotional content? Do the best influencers, are they the ones which have content that's just for content's sake, and then every few pieces they put out will be promotional, or is it something that just doesn't really matter?
It all depends on the engagement level and which kind of followers they have. If the engagement level is still high, it won't be any problem. But as you said, if they are doing a lot of collaboration, maybe the engagement level will drop, and then it's not worth to work with them.
But the platforms will show you that engagement. So do the platforms show you that their engagement levels over time? Can you search so you can see if someone's growing in engagement? I know you can see those that are dropping in engagement.
You can also see that from the platforms, right? And you can also, like, if you want to work with the coming star, or what we should call them, you can also track how many more followers they have got for the last month, for example.
Right. So you could strategically try and find those that are rising, but they haven't. And you can see, right, well, these people, I think this time next year it will be too expensive, right? Maybe for our brand. But if we can get them now, we can sort of ride the bandwagon, sort of jump on their bandwagon and ride that.
Exactly.
That sort of ride with them.
And platform is also good, because one thing that is hard to understand by yourself, because the cost is on the views, not on the followers. Because a person could have less followers, but they have a lot of views. So then because if you want to start without that, it's so hard to understand the value. And sometimes for the influencer, they don't really know what they should charge either. So getting some kind of hint on what it should cost, it's good for your budget also. And it makes sense in the end, so you can see that it actually could bring something to you.
Okay, fantastic. I mean, I feel like I've just learned so much about influencer marketing and how to get on with it, because it's something I've been thinking about for keywords people use for a long time. I have to go and find some of these platforms now and put in and see if I can find anyone who's we're B2B. So I know it's like, say, I can say it works really, really well with B2C as having consumed content that influencers have produced over time. As a consumer, I can see that. But the B2B side is maybe a little bit harder, but it's still something I think is
and
worth
also
investigating.
that is one point that will be extremely fun to see now, 2025, is LinkedIn has started with their own reels, or what we should call them. Yes, so
Right, okay,
I believe that we will see a LinkedIn influencer this year. And
right,
then
okay,
it will be
interesting.
relevant for B2B. But let's see, it has not started yet, but I guess maybe in a half year we will see some kind of different. You will also be able to find LinkedIn profiles in those platforms. Today, I believe only one has it. So in the future, I believe this will be pretty fun to see how it will be.
Yeah, I can see that, because I mean, I've noticed myself over the past year, I've been using LinkedIn more, and I've seen basically on Twitter and other platforms, if you ever got sort of commercial or talked about work or promotional, people, you're promoting your own stuff, people don't like it, and you go back and you sort of get negativity back from that. Whereas on LinkedIn, it's kind of expected that you are self-promotional, or you might be promoting something else. So that people have bought into it. Yeah, I'm going to LinkedIn. It's about work themselves, and will be promoting others. That's what I'm expecting. So it works. Yeah, and that's really interesting. So, I mean, before we wrap up, is there anything that I've not asked? Is there anything that you think there's a big influencer issue that you want to get across, or anything that you want to add to the conversation?
Well, I could say audience and then data. That's the most important part. And if you want to try out easy cheap solution, you should go to getthemes.com, because then you can try out their platform. And if you have any question, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I will be glad to help you.
Yeah, well, I'll put links to those in the show notes. And so in terms of if someone is looking, say there's a listener out there and, they've got a brand and they want to push, but they want some help, is that like a service that you offer? Do
Absolutely.
You do consultancy
I could help
people in this? Okay, right. Yeah. So if there's anyone listening who's wants to get into influencer marketing, and you've got your brand, but you don't know where to start, you want some help, you want an expert to help you, then get in touch with Marc. His details will be in the show notes. Or just search for him, Marc Hillander on LinkedIn. It obviously seems to be the best place to find him. So, well, I think that probably wraps us up. So thanks so much for coming on. The first guest on SEO is not that hard. So after 200 odd episodes, it's the first time I've been asked someone along to be another voice, and it's been fantastic having you on, Marc.
Thank you.
So thanks very much.
Take care.
Thanks for listening. It means a lot to me. This is where I get to remind you where you can connect with me and my SEO tools and services. You can find links to all the links I mentioned here in the show notes. Just remember, with all these places where I use my name, the Ed is spelled with 2 Ds. You can find me on LinkedIn and Blue Sky. Just search for Ed Dawson on both. You can record a voice question to get answered on the podcast. The link is in the show notes. You can try our SEO intelligence platform, Keywords People Use, at keywordspeopleuse.com, where we can help you discover the questions and keywords people are asking online, plus those questions and keywords into related groups so you know what content you need to build topical authority, and finally connect your Google Search Console account for your sites so we can crawl and understand your actual content, find what keywords you rank for, and then help you optimize and continually refine your content with targeted, personalized advice to keep your traffic growing. If you're interested in learning more about me personally or looking for dedicated consulting advice, then visit www.eddawson.com. Bye for now, and see you in the next episode of SEO is Not That Hard.